In yesterday's dev short, the Warframe developers listened to community feedback on the planned Valkyr rework, came up with quite some changes, and in today's livestream, we extensively talked about all of them, plus I came up with a very unique idea on how we could potentially fix the whole invincibility situation. So, in today's Warframe video, I'm gonna give you a TLDR version of the entire discussion that happened on stream today. As always, big shout out to all our generous channel members who help me keep the lights on, and now let's jump right into it.
Valkyr's base health has gone from 450 to 650.
Okay, first of all, Valkyr's base health has been increased from 450 to 650 health. I think, in general, that's not a bad idea at all, especially if they want to push her to be more of a health tanky type of playstyle, as Pablo said in the PAX livestream. I don't think it's going to make a lot of a difference. You need to have a healthy amount of damage reduction to survive on health alone anyway, so it's not going to be a game-changing difference, but I still think it's a step in the right direction. A little bit more health, it never hurts, right?
Her armor, Valkyr Prime's armor, 935 to 1,000.
Okay, so armor was increased from the base value of 935 to 1,000, and if I'm gonna be 100% honest, right, she has so much armor, even without any special shenanigans going on, that she will basically be soft capped at damage reduction through armor, basically in every single case. So increasing the armor further, it's not going to make any meaningful difference. I think this is purely because 1,000 is just a satisfying looking number.
Ripline, and this one was based off of tester and creator feedback. The base range has increased to 9 meters.
That is actually really good. That is one of the changes that I very, very much appreciate, because Ripline, right, the way it was originally intended to be was that it has a base range of 7 meters. For those who don't know, they made it that Ripline, you know, when you grapple onto an enemy and then jump down on them, that this will group up enemies into one blob in a 7-meter radius by default, which would have meant that the maximum possible range that the grouping from Ripline could have ever had would have been less than 21 meters with a radius. And I think a grouping ability that caps out at 21-ish meters in radius is just not a really good grouping ability. And it's cool that they increased that to 9 meters. I think that's good. I think that's really good.
For Paralysis, also based on tester and creator feedback, the energy cost has been halved, so it's been reduced from 50 just to 25 energy.
I'm really torn about Paralysis, because on paper, Paralysis looked pretty good post-rework. I've heard people say it's actually not all that necessary, probably going to be subsumed over. I've heard other people say, nah, it's actually good. I don't have any thoughts on that personally just yet, but I do think, because Paralysis is going to be something that we might spam quite a bit, so the reduction of energy cost from 50 to 25 I think makes sense in that regard.
Her passive, so the rage and death prevention, so the rage meter, we've increased the acquisition rate of rage when killing and hitting enemies. So as you kill enemies with melee, your rage meter is going to go up faster, which is your death prevention meter. Basically,
I gotta interrupt there, because here is, I think, one of the biggest sources of confusion, and that is that Rage in the original pack stream was kind of sort of framed more like a you kill enemies, you get more damage cool thing, whereas throughout this whole discussion, the rage meter has turned more into a death prevention, somehow invincibility meter. You know what I mean? If they had communicated that the rage meter was supposed to be a different take on constant invincibility, I think that would have made people less mad, probably. If we just look at everything except the changes to her 4, I think it's a big W. I think everybody can agree that all the other changes to all her other abilities are just objective wins, and the only reason why there has been so much anger is the removal of the invincibility. And I think it is actually not a bad idea to use her rage meter as sort of invincibility meter. That means as long as you kill enough enemies fast enough, you're still going to be constantly invincible, and not through, you know, the standard invincibility. I think that's fine.
We know that people are going to want to play her at very high levels, such as Elite Temporal Archimedia.
Yes, but I think Elite Temporal Archimedia, level 500, is still perfectly fine with the new Valkyr to just use her as a health tank. I think with just the armor, the health, and maybe a subsumed Mirage Eclipse damage reduction on her, she will have absolutely zero problem face tanking Elite Temporal Archimedia. Not at all.
Activating Valkyr's death prevention only requires 50% of the rage meter instead of 75% rage. And then the Valkyr death prevention window is now 5 seconds instead of 3 seconds.
Okay, so they're still going to take away the invincibility that we have right now. But instead, what they're going to make is that instead of having to have 75% rage as before, you would only have to have 50% rage in your rage meter. And when you then die, your meter goes down to 0 and you will become invincible for 5 seconds. If you manage to get your rage to at least 50% again in those 5 seconds of invincibility, then you can constantly recycle these 5 seconds of invincibility. That is basically the new way that they want to give Valkyr this active invincibility instead of just pressing the button and having it on and that's it. Of course, I will have to try it myself once it comes live, but with high enemy density, I think it's not going to be as much of an issue to keep the invincibility online.
And then Hysteria. A couple things here. Hysteria now drains 5 energy per second instead of 10, so a little bit less.
I think that is a thing that will make Hysteria much more viable for beginners. But on the other hand, I also think that for late game players, it doesn't matter because late game players already had the ability to constantly keep Hysteria up, even at the currently still relatively high cost, right? It's still possible.
And Hysteria no longer ramps up energy drain.
Oh, no ramp up, okay.
Is now 100 health per hit. From 50 health per hit. And then with tester and creator feedback, we increase the combo counter gained from Hysteria's claw attacks, excluding the spin.
All right. Thank you, Megan, for pointing that out. Everybody who wants to read it for themselves, of course, right? Check out the dev workshop, of course. You have all the written information there. The one more thing that I want to suggest here, I'm going to go full MS Paint to show you what I mean here. We're going to rework her rage gating mechanic now with something that came to mind for me yesterday evening. So let's just say that this right here is the rage meter, right? It goes from 0 to 100% full. The way it is right now, we have, if the meter is empty, you get 0% bonus damage. And when the meter is all the way full, on the right side here, you get 300% bonus damage for your Hysteria. Or in general, for melee weapons, or just for Hysteria. Not sure, it doesn't matter. If it's empty, you don't get damage. If it's full, you do get damage. And if you're at least 50% right here, and then you die, everything is going to be reset. And you get the 5 seconds of invincibility. So if you're level cap playing, right? At level cap, your rage meter is going to be entirely down here. This right here at level cap probably doesn't matter anymore at all. And that's fine, because let's be real here, Valkyr never really needed 300% bonus damage to begin with. That is how it is right now. My thought on this was to do the following. If the intention is to make Valkyr a really tanky berserker frame who can like face tank a lot of damage, then why does the 4 triple the armor bonus that you're getting instead of giving her her own layer of damage reduction like so many other Warframes have? And as I pointed out in my previous Valkyr video, just making her 4 give even more armor, even though you're already going to be having like 2,000 armor without that bonus, doesn't really do all too much for your survivability. If instead of getting additional armor from the 4, she would instead get a damage reduction, that would make her like so infinitely more tanky. And my idea here was to make the rage meter, and here comes the outrageous sounding idea, to make the rage meter do both at the same time. So damage bonus is on the left side, damage reduction is on the right side. If the rage meter is completely empty, then you would have 300% bonus damage And at the same time, you would have 0% damage reduction if the meter is all the way here on the left, all the way empty. 300% bonus damage, 0% damage reduction. If the meter is full all the way here, you would get 90% damage reduction and you would get 0% bonus damage. Because it makes it that when you're playing at level cap, where you're probably realistically never ever going to be able to keep that meter filled up due to the rage gating mechanic, you're going to be in this part of the rage meter pretty much all the time anyway. And that's cool because at level cap, you don't even need damage reduction at all because you're going to be one hit anyway. Instead, the fact that you're always in the very left part of the meter would ensure that at level cap, you always have a lot of bonus damage, which helps you kill enemies a bit faster, which makes it easier for you to keep the rage gate going by getting kills, by getting up to that 50% threshold to stay alive. However, in contrast, if you're playing in the area where health tanking is still perfectly possible, then you're likely going to be all the way up here with your rage all the time because you're not dying. It's not going to reset. You're getting a lot of kills because the enemies are not that strong, and your rage meter is going to be full all the time. And that's cool because that would give you your 90% damage reduction, which would make it much more convenient to easily face tank stuff like Deep Archimedia, no problem. And you know, the damage, you don't really need that at those levels anyway. I think this way you would dynamically always get exactly that feature out of your rage meter that you need for the level range that you're currently playing at. I think that's a bit too much of a harsh change to suggest. I don't think that it's realistic to expect that they would actually change it that way, but I think that would make her not only, you know, a bit more user-friendly in both scenarios, but also much more unique. That is just my personal theory. Another massive shout out to Niels V, Demon Lord Cell, Demon Emperor, Emperor Prime, Nox Linux Gaming, Turtlepeer, Lycon Shepherd, Anakanio2, Pepperwolf, Mihawky, Phil the Meme, Socrates the Almighty Rat, Leo Murasaki, Damon, Shadow Lockhart, Trolloloxen, Kiski, Antares, Patrisator, and all other generous channel members for your continuous support. We see each other, hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, good loot.